Welcome, nerds, once again to the news. This week we have quite a bit, so we're just going to get to the headlines. First up, we have the tragedy of As I Lay Dying just continues in the music section. Gaming and tech brings yet another lawsuit for Elon to deal with. We have the Vertigo imprint is returning to comic books and books. Timcast IRL might be going the way of the buffalo. And potentially for good this time. Who knows? We have another live action Lord of the Rings movie that's not the Gollum sequel, and possibly the biggest rumor confirmation this show has ever seen in the rumor mill. All that, and like I said, a fair bit more, so let's get into the news. Music news coming around first. We have As I Lay Dying taking another L, it would seem. We have Papa Roach jumping on another musical trend, and a new music section that's nothing to shake a stick at. So we have a lot of music to talk about, so let's get to it. So let's talk about our new music section. We have no follow-ups or corrections to talk about in music, just new music. So, kicking things off in the new music section, we have a Bruno Mars song that is also Bruno and Rosé, who was one of the singers from the Blackpink K-pop group, who's gone solo, like the rest of them, but that's whatever. So the name of this song is APT, or it's an abbreviation for apartment.
Kissy face, sent to your phone, but I'm trying to kiss your lips for real. Red hearts, that's what I'm on, yeah. Come give me something I can feel. Don't you want me like I want you, baby? Don't you need me like I need you now? Sleep tomorrow, but tonight go crazy. All you gotta do is just meet me at the
which has something to do with the American abbreviation apartment, so very kind of back and forth.
It's whatever you like. Turn this opposite into a club. I'm talking drink, dance, smoke, freak, party all night. Come back, go, what's up? Don't you want me like I want you, baby? Don't you need me like I need you now? Sleep tomorrow, but tonight go crazy. All you gotta do is just meet me at the
Hey, so now you know the game. Are you ready? 'Cause I'm coming to get you. Hold on, I'm on my way. I'm on my way. Hold on, I'm on my way. I'm on my way.
Maybe let me know, I guess. From there, let's talk about our next track. Very much. We have Bill dropping their new track. This is surprisingly still not going black. Operatic
demons from my soul.
So yeah, absolutely. Icarus. The next track is from Better Lovers. The name of this one is Love as an Act of Rebellion. The more I hear this band, the more I really dig it. I was not a huge fan, but largely this band is the remnants of Every Time I Die with the lights off. What happens if we talk? We better start remembering just what we are. We've got it by pretending so far. Let's be our world now. Turns us into slaves. The love we all become one. Pain in our heart has a place. Pain in our heart has a place. And then our next one is a band I feel like we've talked about, but I don't know that we've talked about new music from them yet. So they're about to put out a new record, it would seem. We now have a track from Bloody Heart, the name of this Moving on, let's go next. Oh, Breaking Benjamin. We have a new Breaking Benjamin track. The name of the track is Awaken, and all of the headlines and all of the video titles talk about how Breaking Benjamin got heavier.
So far away, I'm dead awoken, and I'm faded out of breath. Life falls to gray, hope of the hopeless, and I pray without a prayer. Cut my cover now, in the hollow between you find the venom in me. Rip my world apart, in the sorrow beneath you find the devil in me. Stay forever in the light, I awaken your eyes.
And our final track for new music this week comes from a band I had not previously heard of, and somehow they got Jesse Leach to do a guest spot for vocals on this. Their band is
I can't tell who's there. I'm feeling better now, but how is this still getting worse? Never worried, I saw my explanation with you. I'm always wrong, who better than you? Never worried, I saw my explanation with you. I'm always wrong, who better than you? Can't believe that you're just a fool. This world's wrong. Oh, it's still just a bad taste.
There is a section where both
broken mirrors. Tell me you're big
That's what we got for new music. Let's talk about tours and festivals this week. Really, we have two to talk about. Nothing crazy is going on right now as far as tours being announced. Everybody's out on tour. We've talked about this. Jerry Cantrell, though, who just put out a solo record. Jerry Cantrell, for those that don't know, is the guitar player and vocalist from Alice in Chains, one of the vocalists anyway, from Alice in Chains. And he just put a solo record and he's going out on tour. Support for the tour is coming from Filter. It is running from January 31st of 2025 through March 9th of 2025. You can find a link down in the description that will take you to more specific dates, like where he's going to be playing on the dates, as well as tickets. So go check that out. And then our other tour that we're talking about this week really largely is because of the musical suggestion from last week. Musical suggestion last week was the Suspiria soundtrack, which was made by the band Goblin back in the 70s, right? So the band Goblin has gone through a number of iterations, and currently I believe there are at least 2 different iterations that are active right now. So the version that's going on tour is Claudio Simonetti's version, and Claudio was one of the original members of the band, and then again they did the whole, what is it, Judas Priest and a dozen other bands have done it. We actually talked about Mushroomhead potentially doing this, where they split off and have 2 different versions of the same band because certain people just can't get along, but the rights are held by everyone involved and blah blah blah. So that's where we're at with this. The tour starts on Halloween, so October 31st runs through December 15th. At some, not all, but at some of the dates on this tour, they will be screening the movie Demons, which is not Suspiria, strangely enough, screening the movie while the band plays the soundtrack to the movie live. So it'll be really, really interesting situation. Once again, link down in the description will take you to a more detailed list of dates, and you can purchase tickets by following that link as well. So go do that, because that's going to be a crazy show. No supporting music listed, but if they're going to be playing a movie, that kind of makes sense, right? So that's what we got for tours and festivals this week. Let's talk about some regular ass news. We got to start on a down piece for regular news, and that has to do with Iron Maiden's original vocalist Paul Di'Anno. Paul Di'Anno has been struggling with, and this one I really have to read because it's kind of a big word, lymphedema, for years, and he has finally succumbed to the lymphedema and passed away at the age of 66. He was the vocalist on the first two Iron Maiden records, their debut album, Iron Maiden, as well as the second record, Killers. He had he had 2 other specific bands, one of which called The Killers, or Killers, I guess, because The Killers is the 90s, whatever. We also have an official documentary will be coming out about his life in 2025. You can find a link that'll take you to a little bit more detail down in the video description. And while I might not be a fan of Iron Maiden, I can recognize the talent that goes into that music. Like, their bass player is some sort of freaking machine, but also the influential elements, just everyone is influenced by Maiden. I mean, even again, me not being a huge fan, instrumentally, like, those guys are insane, and you would be kidding yourself if you are a person who writes metal music or metal related music, if you've never accidentally subconsciously borrowed a riff from Maiden while writing. Like, that's just kind of the nature of their influence. They are so ubiquitous with the genre. So for them to be losing a member at this young age, even though he was an ex-member, still losing a member at this young age is pretty huge. So we're going to take a moment, we're going to pay some respects to Paul Di'Anno. So let's bring it up for, I don't know if this is much better, honestly. We have Papa Roach talking about their new record. They're starting the writing process. They finished their label obligations with their last record, so now they're doing something a little bit different. And Jacoby Shaddix, their vocalist, was recently interviewed, and he was talking about the quote-unquote new sound for the record, and he said that they're going to be taking it in a heavier direction because that's what seems natural for them right now. I have a more exact quote because it makes sense, quote-unquote, for the next record to be much, much heavier. According to him, the heaviest thing they've ever written, which, you know, we'll believe it when we see it, because a lot of bands, when they're writing new music, have a lot of that bluster. But I think this one is noteworthy because this band has such an identity crisis. Has basically since like their second or third record, because they came out they became big. I guess they've been around for some time, but they got big, they got famous, they got well known when they put out the Infest record. That Infest record came out in the middle of the nu metal boom, and they're now kind of one of the bands that is, they're not still nu metal. So that's why we're talking about this, because they started out as a nu metal band. They went to an emo band. They kind of shifted sounds there. And then in more recent years, they've become a borderline octane, definitely butt rock kind of band. And so now that heavy music is back on the rise, but much more, as some would call it, legitimate heavy music, much more like balls out heavy music, I guess is probably a great way to, you know, deathcore is one of the bigger genres in the metal community these days. You've got a lot of death metal on the resurgence right now. You've definitely got a lot of metalcore, a lot of hardcore, all of these subgenres of metal and hardcore, you know, brushing up against the punk rock, that are very much more aggressive and very much in your face, more so than what we know of for nu metal, right? So that's where they started. That's the heaviest they ever were, was nu metal. So now they want to jump on a new trend where heavier music is trendy. It's hard to take them seriously. Specifically, the example I'm thinking of why I can never take this band seriously ever again, back when Limp Bizkit put out, it was right before Limp Bizkit put out the Unquestionable Truth Part 1, that little EP when Wes finally came back to the band. That was easily the second greatest record that band has ever put out as far as like artistry goes, and not just trying to write music for the radio, which is fine. I really love basically everything in the Limp Bizkit catalog, but they changed the way they wanted their the name of the band represented in the media, because previously up to that point it was two separate words capitalized just like you would, and then at that point in time, Fred put out a press release saying that the band's name, when it was printed in the press or typed up in the press online, he wanted it to be all one word, Limp Bizkit, one word, all lowercase. And Kobe Dick, as he was known at the time, shortly before that anyway, and then at the time he had recently changed his name back to, his stage name anyway, back to Jacoby Shaddix, said that he thought it was a weird ploy for attention for them to change their name when he had literally done that months previously. So just, I don't know, it just seems like they're totally not self-aware, and they're fad jumpers. This is what's popular right now, so this is the music we're going to make, and I just can't see the legitimacy in that. So yeah, apparently Papa Roach is writing a new heavy record. We'll see it when we believe it, or believe it when we see it, whichever way that goes. Let's move on though. Probably our biggest piece of music this week is the As I Lay Dying controversy that is apparently ongoing. I thought we were going to be done with this as of the last time we talked about it, but here we are once again. What is it that I'm referring to? Well, bassist and backup vocalist Ryan Neff, has left the band. One of the few remaining members of the band from before the whole craziness that happened with Tim Lambesis is now gone. I think now Tim is the only member that is still in the band since before he went to prison. I could be wrong, but that's how I'm remembering it at the moment. So yeah, it was a very brief statement that Neff left to the fans on his socials about why he's leaving, which really didn't give a reason as to why, just that he's going in a different direction and is grateful for the opportunities and grateful for the experiences and very much grateful for the fans. And that's basically what he said. No comment officially from the band themselves. I would imagine between now and next week we will get some sort of band update, but as it stands right now, this is very, all right, so I can't imagine that Neff stuck around this long in order to leave because of the reasons that sent him to prison. I will believe I can't think of the guitar players' names from when they put out that record right after Lambesis got out of jail, or prison rather. They left rather quickly, and they're now playing. One of them at least is playing in Unearth. But no, that's Ken Susie. That's anyway. Either way, so everyone who was going to leave because of the reasons that sent him to prison has left at this point, has left up years ago, really. So I don't believe that this has something to do with the past. I think this is just evidence that Tim Lambesis is very hard to work with, and Neff just kind of went, I don't need you anymore, bro, I'm out. So yeah, interesting. Hopefully we will hear from the band and get some sort of context for the reasoning for this, but that's where things stand right now, so we're gonna move on. Our next piece has to do with Static X, which kind of has me a little bit excited. So we have the documentary that we previously talked about is hopefully, and this I guess could have gone in follow-ups, this is technically a follow-up. They're hoping though to release that documentary in 2025. The name of the documentary, just so you don't forget, Evil Disco: The Rise, Fall, and Regeneration of Static X. No more specifics than sometime in the calendar year of 2025. Hopefully sooner rather than later, but as we get more updates, we will be keeping tabs. That is what we have for regular ass news. Let's talk about our suggestion this week. This is going to be a little bit different considering that we're doing suggestions based on the season. It is Halloween season, so the suggestion this week is the self-titled record from Korn. Now, not exactly something you think of when you think of Halloween, but if you think of atmosphere and you think of the way the season makes you feel, the way this record makes you feel, they are very much in alignment. So yeah, standout tracks on the self-titled record from Korn, released in 1994 and still just as poignant and potent as the day they released it. Standout tracks, you have Blind, which starts off the record. You have Daddy, which I think they've only performed like 2 or 3 times since this record came out. You have Clown, which is one that I definitely identified with personally as a high school kid. And just really, this is a sonic push and pull from start to finish. This is absolutely something that sets the tone for the season sonically. Maybe not lyrically all the time, but definitely the atmospherics that you get from Monkey, Head, and Fieldy in this record that kind of laid the groundwork for the rest of their career is definitely in line with the season. So go check out Korn's self-titled record from 1994. Again, just visceral as the day it was released. That is your suggestion for music this week. Gaming and tech this week, we have Elon getting sued by, of all things, Blade Runner. Netflix is closing their gaming studio, and the Nintendo beta, whatever the hell it is, has leaked, kind of. We're going to talk about that. We do have some follow-ups and corrections for the gaming and tech this week. First up, we have Netflix, the gaming side of Netflix that we talked about, and then we talked about again, and now we're talking about them apparently for the last time, because the AAA gaming studio that they were putting together that was actively working on approximately 90 different titles to some degree is being shuttered. We had Joseph Staten, who came from Halo 343 Industries at the time, also worked, I believe, with Bungie on the tail end of the Bungie side of Halo. And we also have Rafael Grassetti, who was one of the art director for the God of War franchise, were previously working for the Netflix gaming studio. They are no longer working. They have not made any comment on the demise of the Netflix gaming studio, but the Netflix gaming studio is dead. And I mean, honestly, I feel like we all saw this one coming, right? Because while it's cool that they had such a novel approach to gaming in that they wanted to do something unique with the streaming abilities of their platform that already exists, the technology just is not there to make that a reality at this point, to make that a feasible, like playable, regular kind of reality for the average gamer. So kinda saw this one coming, but still props to him for giving it a shot, I guess. We have one other follow-up for a game that we've talked about previously. I think we actually even talked about when this project got started, got rolling. Phasmophobia is the game, and the news here, the follow-up here, is that we will be seeing Phasmophobia on consoles, as it is currently only on PC, but we'll see it on the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation VR 2, as well as the Xbox Series consoles on October 29th. So if you have not been able to play this multiplayer horror game, and you really want to, you've watched the Let's Plays and you know what it's all about, then your day is coming, assuming you have something in the current generation as far as Xbox and PlayStation are concerned. They're probably not going to port it to the Switch, just for a plethora of reasons, not the least of which being the Switch is very underpowered. So yeah, Phasmophobia coming to consoles, go check it out. There's also a link to the announcement trailer down in the video description. We didn't put it in trailers because the biggest thing here is that it's coming to consoles. The trailer's kind of secondary. So that's what we got for follow-ups and corrections. There are no proper trailers for this section this week, so let's just jump into regular-ass news. First up is kind of a fun one, and technically not normal news that we cover here on the channel, but it just was too much fun to pass up considering the holiday season that we are in. Halo 2 is what we're talking about, the OG Halo 2. The mod community that is running Project Cartographer is doing a spooky event for Halloween. So Project Cartographer is a mod that you can download for your PC. I think there's a way to run it on your Xbox 360 so that you can play your Halo 2 that way, or your OG Halo. I'm not 100% sure. I know most people who play on Project Cartographer play with ROMs, so you can do ROM on your currently existing PC hardware, assuming you have something that's powerful enough to run Halo 2, which odds are you do if you have a computer that can play games at all. So Project Cartographer is a mod that has re-established the original trophies and all of the original server abilities, not the original servers obviously because those are owned by Microsoft, but like the abilities that you have through the server. There is a link down in the description if you want to download it for yourself and join in the community of Halo 2. The really cool part about this Halloween event that they're doing is that it changes the skin, changes the Molinar armor to a skeleton, like top to bottom, through and out, just you're playing as skeletons. You can turn it off, you can toggle it on and off, but I just think that's entirely too cool to not talk about. So go check out Project Cartographer if you are a Halo player. Next up on Regular Ass News is the big piece for this week's Regular Ass News, and that is Elon Musk versus Blade Runner. Blade Runner 2049 to be very specific. So the production studio that put out Blade Runner, Alcon Entertainment, has accused Elon Musk of copyright infringement and have therefore filed suit in court based on imagery that he used in the Robotaxi announcement last week. Robotaxi, Cybercab, that thing. Earlier this month, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. Earlier this month. So the image that Elon used was something that was generated in an AI program, and the image that they're saying it is copyright infringement on is not the same. So it's really like, yeah, there's similar color tones, but you don't own colors. You don't own the concept of cyberpunk, which is what they both fall under. So where is the copyright infringement? This is so weird. This is more, I honestly feel like this is just more people posturing to show the world just how woke they are and how anti-Elon they are, even though I would venture at least a dozen people that were involved with the making of the Blade Runner 2049 movie drive Teslas. So like it's just the incredible hypocrisy and the incredible just pushing the narrative that the fans of their things are so stupid as to not be able to see the differences. Because the image that Elon made, according to the suit, also, Elon approached, or someone associated with Elon, approached Alcon Entertainment and said, hey, we would like to use some images from your Blade Runner movie in order to promote our event. And when they said no, the response was that they just created the images in an AI image creator anyway, likely Grok. So we've had this conversation a couple of times. At this point, I have yet to hear a valid argument as to how it's different for a computer that sees all of this other art, how that is different from a person who then can draw something that is inspired by all of this other art and has a lot of things in common with all of this other art, but is not all of this other art. Like even in court at this point, there has not been a valid enough argument to make any of these lawsuits stick that are trying to sue Midjourney and Stable Diffusion and XYZ image generators for copyright infringement. It just hasn't happened yet. So if this sticks, which I really don't think it will, because this is one of the weakest arguments that I've seen so far in this space, but if this sticks, it will be pretty monumental, and then we'll just kind of have to go from there. But that's what we got for that one. Let's move right along before I just start talking myself in circles again. We're not going to get away from Elon though, because we have another issue with Tesla this time. It isn't another Elon company. This issue has to do with the Ford converters for the Tesla adapters. So we talked, I guess, a couple months ago at this point about the fact that the Tesla charging cable is going to be the universal charging cable for electronic vehicles. So everyone is adapting. I think the goal was to have everyone adapted by 2026, if I remember correctly. So everyone is going to be adapting the Tesla charging port, I guess is the more appropriate word. For whatever reasons, I don't know, it's behind the scenes, I'm not an engineer, I couldn't tell you pluses and minuses and whatnot and what have you, but having seen the converter from the Ford plug to the Tesla plug, it kind of makes sense. The Tesla plug looks like it has more connection, therefore has better power flow, and the Ford one is rather small by comparison, so just a very interesting juxtaposition. But this isn't necessarily, so all right, I'm burying the lead here. What the issue here is Ford gave out free converters because, again, Tesla is becoming the universal charger. Ford gave out free converters for people who had the older Ford Charger to plug into Tesla. Now they're telling people to not use the converter that has already been given to them. So if you're driving a Ford electronic vehicle, do not use your Tesla converter. They are sending out replacements. And the reason they're sending out replacements is they have found an issue that is going to negatively affect the battery life of your Ford vehicle in the long run. It's going to change how long it takes for your car to charge and how long your car will hold said charge. I don't know, again, I'm not an engineer, I don't know all of the ins and outs of how that works, just that's the reason why they're saying not to use them. There's a lot of clickbait headlines out there saying Ford warns customers not to use Tesla adapter, and that's very much misleading. Ford screwed up their adapters and now they're sending out new ones that aren't going to have this issue. So again, if you have a Ford electronic vehicle with a Tesla adapter that you got direct from Ford whenever they sent out those converters, stop using it until you get your new one. If you don't get a new one in the mail, then contact your dealer so you can get a new one. They are a free replacement. Don't be fooled by people trying to sell you things. That is what we got on that one. Let's move into our next piece, which is the Nintendo Beta. So we didn't talk about this previously, so there's a little bit of ground to cover here, but Nintendo opened, but previously we're starting a list for people who wanted to be a part of a new beta test. And this is I didn't put it down in the notes because, again, I take freaking amazing notes. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a great note taker. But it's the playtest. It's Nintendo playtest beta. I believe that is the vocabulary that they use to sell this, or to advertise this to people. But basically what it is, it's a new game that is in development. And if you're on the beta, then you know better than most, but stuff from the beta has started leaking. A lot of stuff from the beta has started leaking, even to the detriment of people who are leaking it at this point, because Nintendo is very litigious. But it seems that this is not just a systems beta test. This is a legitimate game of sorts. From the sounds of things, it's some sort of weird combination of Second Life, if you remember back that far, and Starfield. So you are effectively creating a world with all of the other players involved. You get a little square plot of this world to do with as you will and as you can, and then there are other plots put there by the developers where you can go earn different kinds of credits in order to get different kinds of things for your plot, and then you can explore the world. And when you come across other player-owned plots, there are ways to lock them down so nobody else can move your things on your plot, and you can't move other people's things on their plots, and so on and so forth. So really interesting. It's almost like Nintendo's using their unique way of interpreting the world and creating an MMO. Like there's no other way to really look at this. It's really an interesting situation. As more develops, we will be keeping tabs. As it stands right now, though, that's all we got. So let's wrap up the news section, the regular S news, and let's get into our suggestion for the week. Suggestion, it's Gaming and Tech, man, and Halloween for Mortal Kombat 1 is absolutely eating up all my time. So that's our recommendation. So the reason I kept it this week as Mortal Kombat 1 is because I feel like modern fighting games, there's this weird thing where everything you have to pay for. Additional characters, additional skins for those characters, all this additional content just costs you more money. At this point, honestly, even if I hadn't bought the collector's edition of the original launch title, I still would be approximately 2 games worth of purchases deep at this point, because original game, expansion, and then the story expansion, like that's a lot of money, right? So it stands to reason that most players feel like at this point they would be owed something. They shouldn't have to pay for everything as far as new content is concerned, especially if it's just cosmetics. Like, these don't really cost you anything technically. Why are you charging me for them? And I understand why they do it, but I feel like Mortal Kombat kind of does it the best at this point, because there are certain skins that there's no other way to get them other than to give them real world money, and that's just the way it is. But there are a bunch of skins that you get for free or for some various, minor game investment. So, and honestly, they've even made that even better, because now you can once a week earn in-game currency that before this point in time you had to pay real world money for. So you can earn it in-game now, so you really technically don't have to give them any more money, except for if you want the expansions that are beyond where we're at right now. Really, that's just a long way of saying there are a lot of skins involved with the Halloween situation in Mortal Kombat 1. A lot of unique skins that they're not just palette swaps of other skins. But even so, like previous premium skins, technically they've given us a free palette version of those premium skins. Basically all of those premium skins, minus the classic ninjas and the Earthrealm Outworlders. There's a couple of exceptions here, but by and large, premium skins, you have some variation of those premium skins available to you at some point in the game. So I really feel like they're doing it right, and Halloween is a good time to earn some very unique skins in Mortal Kombat, and that's why it's our suggestion for gaming this week. It's a long way of doing it. Let's get to the next section. In comic books and books this week, we have the DC imprint Vertigo making a return, but in a slightly different way this time. Batman Hush is getting a sequel, and we have Marvel Subverses collide. Like multiverse, there's sub-multiverses. We have two of them colliding with Spider-Man and Venom. No follow-ups, no corrections, no trailers. Just regular-ass news. Comic-Con happened this week. That's right, Comic-Con in New York, anyway. So we got some comic book stuff at Comic-Con. Go figure. First up, we have Batman Hush 2. There was a Jim Lee panel, and they covered... There's a couple of things we're going to be talking about in this episode. The first of those things is Hush 2. Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb have confirmed that they will be doing a sequel to one of the classic Batman stories of the modern history. It will be coming out in 2025, and it will be happening inside of the mainline Batman continuity. It won't be a one-off book, or a separate book rather, like the original Hush book was. It will be happening inside of the standard continuity. And then our next piece that also came out of this panel is Vertigo. DC has announced that Vertigo will be coming back. It's the imprint, the more mature imprint previously. The change this time for Vertigo is it's going to be creator-owned properties. So you're not going to see like an Elseworlds Batman story in Vertigo going forward. You're going to see something that Jeff Loeb creates brand new specifically for Vertigo that he is the owner of, that is being distributed through Vertigo. So yeah, that's pretty freaking cool. I don't know that Vertigo, you could have come up with something different because Vertigo has associations in the comic book community already, so like if you're going to bring it back, maybe bring it back to its original state and not this new state, but that's just me. From there, let's talk about the Peacemaker comic book that's going to be coming out. It's technically not Peacemaker directly, it's Peacemaker Presents Vigilante Eagly Double Feature. It is a new 5-issue mini series that is going to be released before season 2 of the Peacemaker series on Max, that is going to tie the 2 seasons together. That's kind of the most detail that we got. There is still a couple of questions as to whether this is going to be mainline continuity as far as the comic books are concerned, or if this is only to do with the TV show, and that's kind of where I'm get a little bit fuzzy with the details, but it is happening, so I'm sure we'll know soon enough. From there, we have one other DC piece, and that is Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong 2. The story is currently, the first one rather, is currently happening on comic book shelves now. Just got the green light for a continuation to the arc. Continuation will add King Ghidorah, Rodan, Mothra, and what they're calling titanized giant villains from the DC, the Justice League's Rogues Gallery. So you'll see all kinds of Superman villains, or all kinds. You'll see some Superman villains, some Batman villains, some Wonder Woman villains. I couldn't tell if this was going to be the extended Justice League or just the core league as far as the Titan villains are concerned, but again, we will find out eventually. It is set to be released. Actually, no, there is no release date for this one yet because Series 1 is ongoing. So once Series 1 ends, then we'll probably get some sort of release date for Series 2. So that's what we got for that one. And then our final piece for regular ass news in comic books has to do with Marvel, and this is the Subverses. The Spider-Man Spider-Verse and the Venom-verse both are going to be clashing in a new book that will be out May of 2025 called Spider-Verse versus Venom-verse. That's really all we know, is exactly what the title gives us, and beyond that, the rough window for release is going to be May of 2025. But given that this is such a large, potentially large undertaking, and we don't exactly know the crew involved, there is a distinct possibility that it could get pushed back from May to June, July, what have you. So we will be keeping tabs on that one, but that is what we have for regular S news. Let's talk about our suggestion for the week. We're going again with a novel since it is Halloween time, and since I talk so highly of the TV series based on this novel, we're going to suggest the book for The Haunting of Hill House, written by Shirley Jackson in 1959. That is right. This is a very old book, but this is a very atmospheric and appropriate book for the time. It is a psychological, very unsettling and atmospheric. There's a lot of instigating of the dread and things. Go check it out. Again, The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. It is what the Netflix Mike Flanagan series was based on, and so that is your suggestion for the week. TV streaming, we have the Tim Pool controversy of Timcast IRL to talk about. An unfortunate update for the God of War series over on Amazon Prime, and The Office Australia is a thing now that we're gonna have to talk about, apparently. I got some follow-ups for TV streaming this week. First up, we have Daredevil. Again, New York Comic Con happened over the course of the last week, and so we now know that March 4th is the launch date for Daredevil Born Again on Disney+. Likewise, we got a little bit of a Starfleet information as far as the new Starfleet Academy series is concerned. We already have a confirmation for renewal for season 2 for the Starfleet Academy before season 1 even comes out. So this is how much they believe in these projects. No confirmation as to when the second season is going to happen because we don't have the first season yet, so we'll see. The next one is going to be a little bit of a bummer for fans of the God of War franchise who have been anticipating what they're going to do in the series, the TV series version of it. So the live action series has just lost 3 of its executive producers, and so they are starting back over from scratch. Even though Sony and Sony and Amazon both were very excited about the scripts, they are apparently now starting back from scratch, rewriting scripts and repopulating the staff that is involved in making this happen. So yeah, God of War, huge setback for the live action series. And then our final follow-up for this section is Joe Rogan. We talked last week about how it was a rumor that Joe Rogan was going to be interviewing the next 2 presidential candidates, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. It came out first that Trump was rumored to be going on the show, and then Kamala Harris rumors followed. We now have confirmation, at the very least, that he is going to be interviewing Donald Trump on his show this week. So potentially by the time this is out, that episode will be out on Joe Rogan's YouTube channel. You can go check it out. I'm guaranteeing this is going to be a hell of an episode for Joe Rogan. Not necessarily that he needs any sort of boost, but like just the incredible scrutiny that this is going to go under on both his part and Trump's part is just incredibly interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about this when we get into the rumor mill, but that's what we got for follow-ups and corrections. Let's get into new trailers for the week, and this is the next one is the next big thing for the episode. The Office, the Australian edition of The Office, has apparently come out on Amazon Prime. It started to come out, at least on Amazon Prime. They're doing weekly releases from the sounds of it. I don't know, I'm in the States, and that is one of the very few countries where you can't get the Australian version of The Office on Amazon Prime. So I really don't know how, if you're in the States, you can watch it. You can, though, go watch the trailer for the first season on YouTube, on the Amazon YouTube channel, and it's bonkers. This is approximately like the 15th time that this has happened, that another country has done their version of The Office. technically the American version of The Office. You have to know this by now. The American version of The Office is a remake of the British version of The Office, which happens a lot more regularly than you probably know, where we take a British sitcom and or a British show at all in general. It doesn't even have to be sitcom, reality television. We get dramas, all kinds of stuff from England, from Britain, and then we make it into the American version of it. And now Australia is doing that same thing. So people are getting really up in arms about the fact that it's the Australian version of The Office and why do we need another version of The Office? I feel like that's a little bit ridiculous. But then there's the people who take the issue with the fact that they gender swapped pretty much all of the key roles. And it's so kind of asinine, like why you need to gender, like there was I feel like there was pretty decent parody. There was not parody like mocking, but parody like like equal representation. So I don't understand the need for the gender swapping. I don't know. If it wasn't so cringy, like if the writing wasn't so bad, like I feel like this would not be such a big deal. But because it's gender swapped and the writing is very bad, that's why it's become such a big deal in the community. So I don't know. I wanted to bring this one up so that I can get a couple of your takes down the comment section. What do you think about the Australian version of The Office? If you're in Australia, I mean, if you look at the comment section on the trailer, a lot of people who do live in Australia are apologizing for the existence of this show, so there's that. But I don't know, I just want to hear your takes. So what do you think? Let's move on from there though. Next up in trailers, we got our first official trailer for the second season of the Goosebumps anthology series called The Vanishing. Again, David Schwimmer will be in this, and he is apparently the villain. If you watch this trailer, the trailer does leave the distinct possibility that this is just a red herring. Hopefully that is exactly what this is a red herring, and we get some sort of subversive element in the actual show, so that way we don't feel like we got the entire show in the trailer, because that seems to be a growing theme, right? From there, let's go into the Creature Commandos trailer that was dropped at New York Comic Con this week. I mean, what else is there to really say about this? Honestly, go watch the trailer. It's good. I don't know that it really builds the hype for this, but that's largely because of the ways we've been burned by DC in the past. So this is going to be our first real taste of the new James Gunn DCU. And it looks solid. It looks like it's going to be somewhere in a similar vein as Invincible. So sure, we'll give it a chance and then take it from there, right? This one will be coming out, where'd it go? December 5th on Max. But then back into Star Trek. Back into Star Trek? Oh yeah, because we already talked about Starfleet Academy. Back into Star Trek, we got the Strange New Worlds Season 2 clip. This is a 3-minute clip from, I believe, the first episode of Season 2. If you did not watch Season 1, then why are you watching the trailer for Season 2? Go watch Season 1. But this is legit building some hype, doing its job for sure. This one is going to be out. I don't have the release date on that for some reason. It's at the end of the clip, I believe. But Rhys Darby is a guest star for the first episode or something in Season 2. Either way, it's Rhys Darby, so it's going to be great. Go check out that trailer. Another trailer dropping at New York Comic Con this week was Walking Dead: Dead City. This is our first proper length trailer, whereas the previous one was a teaser trailer, right? This one is coming spring of 2025, so that's the new piece, is we now know that spring is the release window. We don't know anything more specific than that. Once we do, we'll talk about it. And our final trailer for TV streaming this week is Yellowstone Season 5B. Of note, in this trailer, it seems that there is some Kevin Costner footage for 5B, for the end of this series, because everything from this point is going to be technically a spin-off. So the end of this series is going to have, it would appear, at least based on this trailer, some sort of Kevin Costner footage. So they did shoot a little bit with Costner, it would seem, before all of the crazy happened. And that's what we got for trailers for TV, so let's move into the regular news for the episode. First one is the Tim Pool situation. So technically, this is podcasting, so I guess it could have gone in tech, gaming and tech, but it's episodic because it's a podcast, and we've talked about podcast stuff here in the TV streaming section before, hence why it's not just TV, it's TV streaming, because there's more than just, you know, terrestrial televisions. Technically, TV, streaming platforms are a different delivery service anyway, so why not put podcasts here? So that kind of explains why we're here with it. But what happened with Tim Pool? Well, Tim Pool apparently is calling it quits as far as the IRL show goes. So I think that's kind of a big part of where all of this drama is coming from. Because Tim Pool doesn't hire employees, Tim Pool hires friends. You can't have friends as employees because then they start to get lazy and take advantage. Whether on purpose or otherwise is irrelevant because that's just the way it goes. So, because I mean, you look at something like Linus Tech Tips, even something slightly more comparable in, say, The Quartering, or I would say Young Turks, but that's a fairly different situation. I honestly can't think of anything on the YouTube space that would be comparable to Tim Pool on the opposite side of the political aisle. So, but there are plenty of shows like that that have just the money that's coming in from YouTube and from the merch sales and from the other things that they're doing to sustain themselves. You don't have outside investors like you do with like the Daily Wire or the Young Turks or the way Crowder used to run his show. You have just the money coming in that is self-sustaining. YouTube ads, merch sales, any other business ventures that are related to but not directly tied to the YouTube channel itself. Like Jeremy at The Quartering has Coffee Brand Coffee. Tim Pool also has the Timcast or the Brewcast or whatever the hell he calls his coffee company. And that's kind of how they sustain. So he makes plenty of money. He has 30 employees on staff and can't seem to motivate them. And so at the end of the day, if that's your issue, then that's on you. He has said that if he's not directly involved in the making of a show, then it doesn't get made. To which there's already counterpoint to that inside his own company, because pop culture, what is it? The pop, I can't even think of the name of the damn show, but it's their pop culture news show that is kind of covering a similar area in the pop culture kind of landscape as I do, a very different format, but that's their Pop Culture Crisis. That's what it is. Pop Culture Crisis is another show that happens without Tim's involvement. That is part of the company that Tim runs. So he's missing his own point, I guess. This is kind of a rambling statement on my part, but what this all boils down to, what is the news? The news here is that Tim Pool is not good at his job as far as the business side of things. He's very good at reporting the news. Like, that's been made very obvious by the fact that he's a millionaire basically complaining about the news on the internet for a living. Like, that's all well and good, but if you want to expand, if you want to create culture, as he says regularly, you need to be a better business person. You need to be Jeremy. What is Jeremy's last name? Jeremy Boring, I believe, from the Daily Wire. You need to have that kind of acumen, or you need to be Ben Shapiro, who is only there to make sure his show runs and maybe procure some money for other shows. But he doesn't have any direct involvement in the other stuff, as far as I understand the way that Daily Wires run. Or you need to be Jeremy from The Quartering, and you need to be very much involved with those other things, but also have the work ethic to still do your show. I don't know, it's me being a one-man show listening to Tim Pool cry about the fact that he has a staff that takes him for granted just made me feel bad for him, and not in any sort of like, oh, he's getting taken advantage of. It's more, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing. So I don't know. Again, long, rambly way of presenting the news, and a fair bit of my opinion. But yeah, that's what we got for the Tim Pool situation. Our next piece, our other piece for streaming, has to do with Mike Flanagan. Once again, Mike Flanagan has made it known that his next project, his first project with Amazon, is in fact going to be the Carrie remake that I believe was rumored up to this point. And now we know for sure he's going to be doing a Carrie series on Amazon Prime. There are no set dates as to when the production and everything is going to be going forward with that, or when we can expect to see it streaming on the platform. But as those details are made known, we will be talking about them. That is what we have for regular ass news in TV streaming. Let's talk about our suggestion this week for TV streaming. Our suggestion might not be what you're expecting. It is Goosebumps Season 1. The previous, and because it's anthological, so the last season, which had Justin Long as the big name, came 2023, streaming currently on Hulu, involves a group of 5 high schoolers who embark on a shadowy and twisted journey to investigate the tragic passing 3 decades earlier of a teen named Harold Biddle, also unearthing dark secrets from their parents' past. So it borrows heavily from the books that you read, the Goosebumps books that you read when you were a kid, but also from other pop culture horror stuff, which I find really freaking interesting. And it was very well done. Justin Long is kind of always a win, so that is your suggestion for the week. Go check out Season 1 of the current run of Goosebumps out there on Hulu. Movies this week, we have a new live-action Lord of the Rings movie in development, a new movie adaptation for the American Psycho story, and Ke Huy Quan, I think is how you say his name, Short Round, now that he's all grown up, he's getting his own John Wick-esque movie. There's quite a bit going on here. Let's talk about it. Let's get into follow-ups and corrections for movies this week. Our follow-up is the Section 31 Star Trek movie. Started its life as potentially a series and is evolved into a movie. We now have a release date for it. It is Friday, January 24th of 2025. We will be seeing Michelle Yeoh reprise her role for the Section 31 Star Trek movie. That's what we got. That's the only follow-up we have. So let's go into trailers now. We got some pretty great trailers this week. First off, we have The Electric State. This is a new Netflix movie that is going to be starring Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt. So you've got, what is it, Eleven and Space Lord? Why am I brain farting his name? Anyway, also directed by the Russo brothers, so even more Marvel ties. And legitimately, this cast is gigantic, but it seems that the rest of the cast are going to be bit parts or cameos and not so much starring them. But it's a post-apocalyptic movie that has to do with a robot uprising that's also seemingly fairly family-friendly. So it looks legitimately entertaining and also safe to watch with the kids. So can't really go wrong. Go check out the trailer. You see what I'm talking about. Next on the trailers for movies, we have Love Hurts with Ke Huy Quan. I know I can never say that name appropriately. Short Round from Indiana Jones. Good Lord. Short Round from Indiana Jones. Also, he was in The Goonies when he was a kid. And now he's all grown up. He was in Everything Everywhere All at Once. And now he's getting a John Wick movie called Love Hurts. Yeah, basically that's a new genre of action film, is John Wick, where it's a retired assassin of some sort who gets reactivated after he's kind of aged, and then he gets underestimated by whatever villain is going after him. In this case, it is our main character's brother, and kind of crazy, awesome action ensues. We got it again. John Wick was the first one. We got the Nobody series with Bob Odenkirk, and now we're getting this one. So, yeah, pretty interesting. The trailer looks legitimately good, though. I'm kind of here for this new subgenre of action movie, I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty entertaining. But then our final piece of trailers for this week in movies has to do with a movie called Street Trash. Thank you, YouTube algorithm, for showing me this trailer. This is strange, right? That zombies can be used as social commentary, but like honestly, this is a different take on the social commentary that zombies are generally used for. So that's a little bit refreshing as far as what's presented, at least in the trailer, and has me intrigued to definitely check out the movie. So go check out the trailer and maybe you will agree as well. That's what we have for trailers this week. Let's talk about some regular ass news. First up, we have an update on the Bob Iger situation, which isn't really a follow-up necessarily because this announcement was just made. But if you remember previously, Bob Iger, when he got reinstated as the CEO over at Disney, he was only supposed to be there for 2 years, and here we are approximately 6 years later, and he's still the CEO, and his contract is coming up again at the end in 2026, and he is officially going to be stepping down for sure this time. There will not be another contract extension, as made very clear by Disney as a company. He will stick around with the company until 2026, but in 2025 they will name a proper successor to Bob Iger. So we will be keeping tabs on that. Next up, let's talk about Lord of the Rings. This one's really interesting because this is another live action adaptation of the Lord of the Rings. It is not an adaptation of the Holy Trilogy of books, nor is it another adaptation of The Hobbit. This is something new. It is also not going to be directly related to the Gollum movie that we also know is in production at the moment as well. I still believe they're in pre-production. I don't believe that anything has moved forward as far as photography goes with that movie, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about another live action movie. This one has been made known to be in existence by the original co-writer, where'd her name go? Philippa Boyens, who co-wrote the original trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy as well. She has clarified that it will, again, not be a second version or a sequel rather to the Gollum movie, Hunt for Gollum. That will not be a multi-part movie series. Also, it has been made known that Gandalf will be part of the narrative and that it will tie directly into the Peter Jackson sexology, the 6 movies, the Hobbit movies and the Lord of the Rings movies. It will tie directly into those. It will exist inside of that universe. So hopefully they read some Tolkien before they make this one, because we all saw what happened with Rings Power. Rings Power is not correlated with the Peter Jackson movies at all, so don't get that twisted. But that is what we know about the new Lord of the Rings movie. It's no title, no release date, no anything like that. We just know who's going to be directing. It's going to be Philippa Boyens, who again co-wrote the original 6 movies with Peter Jackson's team. And then we have another remake. Let's talk about this American Psycho remake that has been announced. We know that director Luca Guadagnino, I think that's how you say that name, who directed the Challengers movie, has been brought in to do the remake for the American Psycho. Lionsgate is billing this as not a remake of the first movie. It is going to be a quote-unquote reimagining of the story from the book written by Bret Easton Ellis. Ellis, if you'll recall, was not a super fan of the first movie with Christian Bale starring as Patrick Bateman. Really, that's all we know about this so far. I believe Ellis eventually came around to the American Psycho movie, just like he came around to the Zero movie. I don't know that he's really come around to any of the other adaptations of his work, but irrelevant to the fact that this is going to be going forward. So a lot of people will put up a red flag when they see that word reimagining of X, right? So it should be you should be reminded, I guess, because this is fairly well known, this is common knowledge at this point, that the original American Psycho movie was in fact directed by a woman. She also, I believe, co-wrote the screenplay for it. So like all of the crazy psycho stuff that happens in that movie was kind of signed off on by, I don't know that she identifies as a feminist, but like still pretty woke liberal type woman in Hollywood, right? So very interesting that would be the vocabulary that they use to promote this new version of it, but this is not the last we're going to be talking about this. We will be keeping tabs going forward, but also we have some rumors about this in the rumor mill this episode, so stick around for that. That's though what we got there. And then speaking of John Wick and its new subgenre existence in the action movie oeuvre, if you will, we now have word that there is yet another John Wick movie in the works. That is correct. Yes, I know he died at the end of the last one. That's not going to be messed up by the existence of this movie because it's going to be a prequel to the movies that already exist. And even better, it is going to be an anime because ostensibly Wick is going to be younger in those movies than he is now, and they're not going to just de-age Keanu Reeves for an entire movie. That's ridiculous. So they're making it an anime. And so the story that they're going to be telling in this anime is going to be what it was that Wick had to do in order to retire. The big, I forget exactly what they call it in the mythology of the movies, but the big thing that he had to do in order to retire. That's pretty interesting territory. So I feel like this is going to be something that fans of the franchise are really going to get behind. Younger fans, I guess, more appropriately, because like Gen X and Boomer fans, because there's plenty of them, of this aren't really going to understand an anime necessarily, because that kind of art form was a little bit beyond their time, but I don't know, maybe everybody will enjoy it as well they freaking should. It is going to be directed by Chad Stahelski. Chad has been associated with Keanu and the director of the live-action movies since they all met on the set of, I believe it was the second Matrix movie. So yeah, this is a relationship that's been around for a while. It's a very interesting situation. Follow the link in the description if you want a much more detailed breakdown of what's going on there. But the long and the short of it is we're getting another John Wick movie. It's going to be a prequel and it's going to be animated. That's what we have for regular S news this week in movies. Let's talk about our suggestion. We're going once again a little family friendly. A suggestion this week is also a free movie. You can stream this for free over on Pluto, and it is Paranorman. Just super fun animated movie, man. Has to do with Halloween, very specifically has to do with Halloween and zombies and dead people and how this kid can see them and talk to them. It's actually kind of heartwarming at the end of it, so it's really cool. It's again zombies as social commentary, but again a switch on what that social commentary is. It's the one that we talked about earlier in the section is status, class and status commentary, and traditionally what it is consumerism commentary. This is growing up. This is kind of the awkwardness of being a kid. This commentary on that through zombies and stuff. So it's a very unique take on the subgenre, and honestly, definitely worth a watch. It's a fun watch, and it's free, so go check it out on Pluto. That is your suggestion this week, Paranorman.
Maybe. It's classified.
And then the rumor mill is how we end the regular sections. So rumor mill this week, we have Joe Rogan confirming one of the biggest podcast rumors of the last decade, I'm sure. We also have a couple of Big Bang Theory sequel, spin-off, something, and then also casting for that American Psycho remake movie, and a couple more, but nothing crazy this week. We have a confirmation this week. No refutations, but definitely a confirmation. Our confirmation this week is the Joe Rogan situation. Joe Rogan, even though he has previously said that he would never have Donald Trump on his show, he now is going to have Donald Trump on his show. The Kamala Harris situation very much still remains to be seen. I will be very freaking surprised. I'll eat my hat. Not this hat, but a hat. If we do see Kamala Harris on the Joe Rogan podcast. I was very surprised when I heard this because, again, Rogan has said previously that he would not have Trump on, and now he's having Trump on. So, I mean, everyone's entitled to the ability to change their mind. Just seemed like this one was a little weird. But yeah, confirmation, it's happening. At least half of that rumor is happening. Let's get into new rumors. We have no new sources for old rumors, just some new rumors to talk about. First up is another Blade rumor. This time they're saying that Blade has been canceled or postponed because it was removed from the release schedule at New York Comic Con. So that has led to wild speculation. We do know at the very least that Mahershala Ali is still attached to make this happen. It just seems that the make this happen part might get pushed back a little bit. So at this, it's kind of hard to say that this didn't happen because again, we didn't see it on the release slate from Marvel at their presentation at New York Comic Con. So I'm gonna say about 90% likely that this has been pushed back again, though the reason why it got pushed back is very much remains to be seen. So there's that. From there, our next rumor has to do with Secret Wars. This one is Thanos returning. This is another rumor about Thanos coming back. This time, Thanos is returning specifically so that he can be killed by God Emperor Doom. This is technically rumor that is reliant on another rumor. So we can only go so high if the existence of God Emperor Doom or something resembling the God Emperor Doom storyline from the comics is going to happen in this movie. That's a rumor unto itself. So to then extrapolate beyond that with another rumor saying, well, the reason that Thanos is going to be coming back is so that he can fight and lose to God Emperor Doom, assumes that God Emperor Doom is real. So 50% is as high as we can go. We are going to go that high because I think if they do the God Emperor Doom storyline, which is possible, I don't think it's super likely, but I think it's possible, then yes, it would make sense for them to bring Thanos back at least for a movie so he can die again, right? So yeah, but 50%, that's as high as we can go for that. Next up is Big Bang Theory rumors. We actually have two Big Bang Theory rumors. First one is a Stewart-centric spin-off series. We know that Young Sheldon's coming to an end, and that is getting a spin-off, so the spin-off's getting a spin-off, which was Sheldon's brother and his wife and their child, and that's going to be the focus of the spin-off from Young Sheldon. So technically that's a Big Bang Theory spin-off as well. But then we have a Stewart-centric spin-off in the works, according to the rumor. Stewart, remember, was the guy who ran the comic book shop, and he was kind of the outsider friend that they didn't really acknowledge. So that's going to be the focus of the spin-off, of one of these spin-offs, according to rumor. So we're going to address these two separately. The other one is that there is going to very potentially be a Penny-centric spin-off. I honestly think that if I had to, gun to my head, pick which one of these was more likely to happen, especially based on the information, because these are two different sources saying these things, based on the information given, it sounds like the Stewart one might be a little bit more likely. And then the Penny rumor is going to be wrapped into the Stewart rumor, in that Penny's probably going to have some sort of guest spot or cameo or something along those lines in the Stewart show. But considering both of these sources, it's kind of hard to really say one way or the other because they have really bad track records. So I'm going to just kind of split the difference on both and say 50% likely that we're going to be seeing a Stewart-centric Big Bang Theory spin-off series, and also 50% likely that we're going to be seeing a Penny-centric spin-off series from Big Bang. And then we have American Psycho. Like I talked about in the movie section, American Psycho is getting reimagined as it's being billed by Lionsgate. The rumor here is who they're going to cast as Patrick Bateman. We have another very poor rumor monger saying that it's going to be Timothée Chalamet, who's going to be the one that is cast as the modern Patrick Bateman. I think that would be a very effective choice because Chalamet is one of the great actors of his generation already, and he's still in his early 20s, I believe. So yeah, sure, if that goes the way that the rumor says it's going to go, then it will be great. I don't know how much weight we can put on that, though, again, because this source is very, very poor. Also, Timothée Chalamet's slate, his movie slate, is pretty full ahead of him. So if we're talking about pre-production already for the American Psycho reimagining, then I don't think that Chalamet is going to be the guy, but he could be, because we don't know exactly what the timetable is. Like, I feel like there's enough on both sides to say that we're going to split the difference on this one as well and go 50% likely that this will be happening. So that's what we have for the regular rumors. And then we're talking about speculation for this rumor. We have one piece of speculation, and it's Blade. So the bump for Blade, assuming it's real, it might be advantageous for Marvel, because if you want to believe other rumors that we've covered here on the show, they're very potentially going to be doing at least one more movie with Wesley Snipes' Blade. So because Hollywood producer types are the way they are, it is verboten to have two active different representations of a single character, which is why when Batman is actively getting movies, they don't have him in a TV show. That Gotham kind of had a weird loophole with that, but the same thing with Joker in the Batman universe. If he's actively in the movies, which he was at the time, then he doesn't get to get properly represented on TV. And the same thing happens with intellectual properties all over the place inside of nerd culture, inside of the things that we nerds like to watch, inside of basically anything that Hollywood producer types can get their hands on. If there is an existing version of it, see also Superman and Lois, and why we don't have a Superman movie right now, because that series is ongoing. That series will end before the new Superman movie comes out, so as to limit confusion in the minds of the corporate executive types, limit confusion with people who don't understand how movies work. Like, it's ridiculous, but that's legitimately the reason why. They think it's going to confuse the audience because, well, Tyler Hoechlin is Superman in the TV show. Who's this guy in the movie? I'm related to somebody who has those lines of thought, so I understand, but I don't think he is representative of the target audience because he's in his 70s at this point. So yeah, he's gonna get a little confused because he doesn't keep up. He didn't read comic books when he was a kid, right? Anyway, so if that, it will be advantageous to their line of thinking, at least, if they bump the Blade movie, the Mahershala Ali Blade movie back, because we're going to very likely see Wesley Snipes' Blade in Secret Wars at the very least, if not in another solo movie, so that we can get some sort of proper conclusion to that storyline. So yeah, very, very potential, but that is absolutely speculative on my part and anyone else who's selling that to you. It is very, very much speculative. But that's what we have for the rumor mill this week, nerds. Let's talk about housekeeping. So we have an interesting situation. I have not posted That Just Happened from last week on the channel, which means there is still another That Just Happened episode coming. It's just not going to be from this week. Not recording an episode of That Just Happened will not be, there wasn't really much going on as far as, like, I went to a concert, but we will talk about that next time on probably the last episode of That Just Happened for the season, because we will be going into live shows very soon. It's looking like the second week of November will be our last pre-recorded show. We will then take 2 weeks off from the news at the end of November, and then in the beginning of December, we will be switching over to live shows. As we get closer to the proper end of the season, proper day of the week will be chosen for those live shows, and we can talk about what day that is then. But as it stands right now, I still haven't pulled the trigger on when it's going to happen. Probably something similar to the way it happened last season end, last off season, was we went live Tuesday night when I do this anyway, and then did all of the re-ups for the audio version and the Rumble the next day, so Wednesday. But potentially we're going to be streaming to 2 different platforms this year, so I don't know, it depends on how much I can get done in those 2 weeks where we take completely off. So that, I believe, is everything for the housekeeping. That we will actually have for the next episode of That Just Happened, we will probably be having 2 different concerts to talk about, so that's pretty exciting. And hopefully some movies. But really all I've done as far as consuming content over the last week has been watching sitcom Halloween episodes for short that I'm about to film right as soon as I'm done filming this week's episode of the news. So that's where we're at with that. Thank you very much, nerds, for sticking around. It's been a bit of a long one. I don't know, probably not the longest one we've ever done, but definitely not the shortest either. As it stands right now, that is what we got, so we'll see you next time. Before we go, always remember, nerds, that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.